What it do, cuckolds? It's your boy, the Hater. It's Monday night. It's a little bit after Raw, so that must mean one of two things. The Hater forgot that Monday Night Raw is now 2 hours once again. And two, it's Hater Outdoors, and it's Hater reviewing Monday Night Raw. Now, I will say a couple of things first. All things included, this was a pretty decent episode. There was a lot of filler nonsense, but there were some key highlights that I thoroughly enjoyed. So without further ado, let's get to it, cuckolds. The show opens up with Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed. Now, your boy wants Bronson Reed to hit another 6 tsunamis and take Seth Rollins out for another 3 months. But we don't always get what we want, you know what I'm saying? So instead we get a horrible brawl that essentially ends, for now at least, with Bronson Reed and a security guard on top of him. He grabs the security guard, throws him under 2 more security guards. Security's all over the place. He goes to try to flatten out Seth Rollins on the announce desk with, the tsunami. Seth Rollins moves out of the way. That's the end of the brawl. Now, it should be noted there was 2 more mini brawls during various segments backstage between the two. So, okay, this wasn't ideal, right? I would have liked to see something great because Bronson Reed's brawls are probably his best attribute, but we didn't get that. It is what it is. I understand. I just don't like how the security guards were all over the place, but more on that a little bit later. Next up, we have the first tag match in some sort of tag team tournament to determine the number 1 contenders for Finn Balor and, JD McDonough. At this point, we've reached a point where even JD McDonough doesn't wrestle consistently. Even Jobber D. McDonough doesn't wrestle consistently. If you have a title in this company, if you have any kind of clout, kayfabe or otherwise, you're not wrestling. You are sticking to the pay-per-views, or in the case of JD McDonough, you're just not wrestling because this guy hasn't wrestled in 2.5 months. But whatever. New Day versus Final Testament. The New Day predictably wins with a roll-up, right? I didn't like this, especially the way that Razor was booked. There was a part near the end of the match where it's Kofi Kingston and the Albanian psychopath Razor, who is awesome, along with Akam, who is also awesome, right? And basically, Razor is doing absolutely nothing. He's just trying to do shit. He's playing like a dumb idiot role and just running into things as Kofi Kingston just jumps around the ring like a wasp and eventually rolls him up. I think he rolled him up. May have been Xavier. I don't remember, to be honest, right? During the match, R-Truth comes and tries to beat up The Miz. But basically, by the end of the match, even though the Final Testament has lost once again, I don't think the Final Testament has ever won a match. I don't even know why they're around. They've never won a match. I don't think since the Final Testament came together, maybe the AOP won their first match, their return match, but ever since then, it's been loss after loss after loss. Likewise, Karrion Kross, who's supposed to be their leader, has only lost since he started this group. This is one of the worst groups of all time, right there with Retribution. But anyways, as the Final Testament, don't blame me, motherfucks. Don't name one group the Final Testament and the other group Judgment Day. And you also have New Day. It's just really stupid, you know what I mean? But anyways, they're beating up R-Truth. Kofi wants to help because Kofi's new gimmick now is do everything that Xavier Woods doesn't want him to do, right? All of a sudden, Kofi Kingston is this hero that helps people out. I don't think I've ever seen Kofi Kingston come out and help anybody ever unless it's his clear allies, right? And not a knock against the booking of Kofi. This is just a normal thing in wrestling. People don't help each other out for no reason, right? But again, Kofi Kingston tries to, but Xavier talks him out of it, logically saying, we won the match, we have to focus, right? This selfish Xavier Woods character has potential. However, we have to tolerate him until we see the Judgment Day 10-year reunion, which they do deserve. And once the Judgment Day I don't think the Judgment Day is going to be involved anymore, so whatever. Right? But once the New Day basically crumbles, falls apart, I would imagine at the reunion, they have a nice reunion, and then maybe Xavier finally explodes and runs his mouth. Big E has to say something, and either he walks out or he attacks Kofi, setting up Xavier versus Kofi, which should be a WrestleMania match at this point, but it's too far from WrestleMania, so we'll see how this goes. But they can't continue this for much longer because now we're waiting for the turn, right? And in my opinion, even though the New Day never wanted this to happen, this was always the logical conclusion, right? And quite frankly, the long-term booking of New Day has been excellent, and now they're ripe for Xavier Woods coming out as the star, right? he was always the star. Xavier Woods was the glue of the New Day. When the New Day was supposed to be this, like, black supremacist Nation of Domination 2.0 gimmick, Xavier Woods came out in a suit and glasses, right, as the intellectual, as the Malcolm X of the group, and the two other guys were like just his lackeys, right? Then they framed this into what the New Day eventually became, and that was a massive success, which led to Kofi Kingston getting, I don't want to say an undeserved title run, one of the worst title runs for sure, but Kofi Kingston put in his time, and he deserves one title run, and he got that. Big E doesn't deserve it, but he got it too. So this leads to the question of, what's Xavier Woods' role now that the two other guys, the two lackeys essentially, at least from the original orientation of the group, the two lackeys were able to overcome him? Well, the only logical conclusion is that when the group ends, the guy that gets the rub is Xavier Woods. I don't think anybody would expect Kofi Kingston to come out on top of that feud. Xavier should come out of that feud and get a nice mid-card run, right? If this leads to a world title, just to complete the trifecta at some point, I don't think it will. But if it does, I wouldn't be completely opposed to it if done right. Selfish Xavier Woods is a compelling character, and I liked it. This match I didn't like, but as they're beating up R-Truth, the lights go off, and finally, after like 3 months off, the Wyatt Six appear, right? The Wyatt Six basically appear for no reason, and I think their pattern is that they always attack groups with women, so Nikki Cross can do something, because she has no purpose being there whatsoever. It just so happens that Final Testament has Scarlett Bordeaux, so she can attack Scarlett Bordeaux. It is what it is. They beat everybody up. They have nonsensical moves. There's a part where Rowan puts Dexter Lumis in a powerbomb and powerbombs him on the other side of the barricade. He lightly grazes AOP, and then he just takes a powerbomb to the outside. So this was like a really stupid move. I hope Dexter Lumis is not too hurt from basically taking a massive powerbomb to the outside. It looked like it was concrete. You know what I mean? It probably hurt like hell. Anyways, back in the ring, Uncle Howdy appears, and the only person left is Miz, except for Paul Ellering, who pushes Miz out of the way and takes the mandible claw. This was a really bad look. At the end of the day, Paul Ellering is in his 70s, and like Uncle Howdy, which is basically a retard who thinks he's a supernatural character, Uncle Howdy attacking a 72-year-old man, or however old he is not a good look. It doesn't fit the bill. It makes the Wyatt Six look like heels, which was obviously their intention in the beginning. But now, since everybody realized they're a jobber faction, their role is to be this jobber faction who's a face jobber faction and attacks low-level heel jobber factions. It doesn't get any more low level. I don't think you can, if you tried to make a worse faction, you couldn't come up with anything worse than the Final Testament. So when the Wyatt Six inevitably beat the Final Testament, I don't know why this is ever going to be presented as anything noteworthy. Like, everyone beats the Final Testament. We just saw Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston beat the Final Testament. Everyone beats the Final Testament. So when the Wyatt Six do so, the only good thing that can come out of it for the Wyatt Six is if, and obviously when, Uncle Howdy beats The Miz, because The Miz, for all intents and purposes, is still a former two-time WWE champion. So I didn't like this part at all. It was really dumb. Then after this, we have a stupid-ass women's tag team title match. Sorry, not a title match. Just a random match. Maybe there's some implications for a world tag team title shot for the women, but they didn't really allude to it. However, it's an interesting pairing. It's Liv Morgan, who has been carrying Raw for several months now, and Raquel Rodriguez versus Damage Control, who somehow still haven't learned to say a few words in English. Nevertheless, the match happens, but it's thrown out after Lash Legend. For some reason, Lash Legend, Jakara Jackson, and Trick Williams on the other side are at every Raw now. It's like, why are they there? Who cares? But anyways, Lash Legend hits one of them in the head with like a forearm. They go in, they start whooping that ass. Jakara Jackson does her finisher, which is called the Sugar Rush or something like that. Who cares? But Lash Legend does her finisher, which is called the Lash Extension, which I think is a brilliant name for a finisher by Lash Legend. Overall, the fact that they're attacking these broads is a good move for them, because they deserve to be on TV after getting opportunities stolen from them time and time again by the likes of Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, who in my opinion have become colossal failures. Especially Jade Cargill. This is inexcusable. The fact that Jade Cargill now has to go inside a ring and pretend that she's equals with people like fucking Kairi Sane and Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend. But at the very least, I now learned Jakara Jackson's name because I always said Lash Legend in the other one. You know what I'm saying? Just like I say Bronco Nima in the other one because Bronco Nima is a memorable name and the other guy's name clearly isn't because I don't know who the hell he is. Anyways, after this, or before this I should say, there was a segment where Carlito says he's going to fix it, right? So Carlito then eventually, I'll just say this now, he goes to Adam Pearce and he says Dominic deserves a shot at Gunther. But as we all know, Gunther doesn't wrestle, so there's no chance of that happening. Instead, Adam Pearce says it's going to be Dominic versus a former World Heavyweight Champion. Now, if he's talking about just the World Heavyweight title, the options are essentially Drew McIntyre, which it won't be him, Seth Rollins, which it won't be him. So the only person left, obviously, is Damian Priest, which makes the most sense. If he's talking about other champions, then it could be Finn Balor, just to make things interesting. But I don't think it's going to be that. I think it's just going to be the low-hanging fruit. Damian Priest is going to beat Dominic, and that's going to be the way that he throws his name into the hat, which he already did in another segment where he goes to Gunther respectfully. This actually felt good because he was like, I'm going to earn it, like I've earned everything else. And this was the most natural of the promos that Damian Priest has cut. So, you know, I'm pretty bullish on Damian Priest if they treat him correctly. So we'll see how that goes. Next up, we have the LWO versus American Made. And holy shit, I just noticed Lillian Garcia is back. The GOAT is back. Now, Samantha Irwin or whatever her name is, you know, I don't have anything against her. She was pretty good at her job. You know, the hater is an honest man, and she was good at her job, right? She was an excellent replacement for any other announcer they have. But they also have like Alicia Taylor or Aisha Taylor or whatever on SmackDown, and sometimes I get them confused because they have the exact same voice. They don't look very similar, but they have the exact same voice. I'm like, what the hell is going on? But I didn't even see Lillian, but I just recognized her voice. Lillian Garcia is the greatest announcer of all time. I don't want to hear this horseshit about Howard Finkel. No. Lillian Garcia is the best of all time by far. And as a matter of fact, when the hater was a wee lad, I went to Raw one time and I was sitting pretty up front. It was actually the Raw where I think Evolution became like a group, right? And Lillian Garcia came out during the commercial break, and I was like, Lillian, and she like noticed me, and I pointed at her, and she pointed to her eyes and pointed at me, like basically like, I see you, kid, because I did the same thing to her. So Lillian Garcia is awesome. Not only as an announcer, but as a character. Remember all those great segments where The Rock would say, Lillian, do you want a piece of The Rock's strudel? You know what I'm saying? Or the times when Eddie Guerrero would be like, Orale Liliana. You know what I'm saying? Lillian is just awesome. I'm very happy that she's back. She's the GOAT. I'm sure she still looks amazing, but I didn't get a chance to see. So anyways, that's really cool. Then we have Ray and Dragon Lee. They beat, this was quite a shock. Ray and Dragon Lee, I expected them to lose, but they beat, who did they beat? I forget who they, American Made. They beat American Made. Now, I really like American Made, but I don't like them as much as I like Rey Mysterio. Dragon Lee, I could give a flying fuck about. But Rey Mysterio was there, 619, Dragon Lee does a frog splash. It'd be cool if some of the wrestlers had like a top rope move that wasn't a splash or a frog splash. It's like everyone does the splash and the frog splash. You know, how about do a swanton but make it a finisher again? You know, how about do like a corkscrew splash? Do something interesting, but he takes the low effort move, does it, they win. This was pretty cool just because Rey Mysterio is involved, and it's good to see them win. I wouldn't be opposed to Ray and Dragon Lee becoming tag team champions and then feuding with Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro. As everyone knows, Cruz del Toro is my favorite of the jobber luchadors, in which I include, you know, Joaquin Wilde, Dragon Lee, fucking, Angel Garza, Humberto, all these guys, right? Or it'd be even pretty cool if Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee win the titles and then they just drop them to the Lucha Bros. Because in my opinion, one of the greatest dream matches left that's available is Rey Fenix versus Rey Mysterio. This needs to happen, and if the best we're going to get is a tag team, that's fine. But it needs to happen. That could be an amazing match. So that was pretty cool. And as we said, Carlito wanted Dom to have the match, etc., etc. None of that stuff happened. There was another segment with, what's-his-face? Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed, and they fought in backstage. Who cares, right? Now it's time for the main event. I will say a couple of things about the main event. First of all, the main event was excellent. I really, really enjoyed this match, which is a rare occurrence for the hater. Now, the hater would have booked it differently, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I think the way that I would have booked it would have been superior, but considering what they did, this was an okay way to do it. First of all, both guys came off looking strong, right? Even though Braun Breaker won by interference from the Bloodline, Braun Breaker also kicked out of 2 super kicks, a spear, and an Uso splash, which is exactly what did him in when Jey Uso won the Intercontinental title. Obviously, Jey Uso looked strong because he had Braun Breaker beat many times, and it was presented as if the only reason that he lost was because of the bloodline. Now, let's get to the bloodline. The bloodline appears. Tonga Loa tries to hug Jey Uso. He's like, you can win this, you can win this. Jey Uso turns around and unprovokedly super kicks him. Now, maybe you could argue that the provocation is that they even showed up with a shirt that says Yeet, and they try to taunt him, right? But after he did this, Tama Tonga makes a few weird animal noises and jumps through the air, gets super kicked. This guy is just like one of the worst wrestlers of all time. Anyways, after this, Solo Sikoa is trying to talk reason into Jey Uso. He's like, I'm here to help you, Us, whatever. Meanwhile, Braun Breaker is gathering some momentum, and he goes for the spear, the one where he runs around the ring. And Jey Uso gets out of the way, and he spear/clotheslines Solo Sikoa. This was a great moment. Obviously, everyone saw it coming, but Jacob Fatu then reacts. Then we get the stare down. Bronson Reed, I keep forgetting these guys, Braun Breaker, I think, is a legit 5'10", 5'11", and he's the same exact height as Jacob Fatu, who's supposed to be 6'2". So there goes that mysticism. There goes that bullshit, right? He's like they're the same size, except Braun Breaker is far more athletic. But whatever, this was a good stare down because these two guys are both new and they haven't interacted yet, right? Now, this leads to Jey Uso doing like a suicide dive, wiping them both out. Then he does like the aforementioned 2 super kicks, spear and splash, and Jey Uso kicks out. This leads to both of them going outside eventually, and that's when Jacob Fatu strikes, doing a super kick and a Samoan drop to the table, which doesn't break, on Jey Uso. Then Braun Breaker comes out, grabs him, throws him in the ring, does the little super spear, as they call it now, and pins him, right? So basically, Jey Uso was screwed out of the Intercontinental title by these two jobbers called Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa. And I suppose the other 2 jobbers that were kicked out of ringside. Now, a couple of things on how I would have done this differently. Number 1, I would have actually had Jey Uso retain. I'm more on that later because I actually like the fact that he dropped it overall. But I think if you're going to have like War Games, which is obviously where this is heading, you're still going to need a 4th guy. And the way that they built this up, Braun Breaker could have been that 4th guy. Maybe instead what happens is Braun Breaker spears Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu goes all retarded, beats up, while the referee's not looking of course, beats up Braun Breaker, Jey Uso doesn't notice, Jey Uso wins the match as a result, he hits the splash, he wins the match 1, 2, 3, right? Then, eventually, Braun Breaker joins forces with Roman Reigns and Jimmy, right? And his philosophy is, you screwed me out of the title. Meanwhile, on the other side of the coin, Solo Sikoa is saying, Jay, we helped you win the title, so you got to be with us. Then you have like a stare down moment where basically Braun Breaker says to Jey Uso, right? He says, is this how you want to be? You want to win the title with these guys? You want to align yourself with these guys against your family members and me, the guy who would have beaten you otherwise? Then you have a 4-on-4 match. Then afterwards, Braun Breaker can go and win the Intercontinental title again, right? Braun Breaker makes an excellent 4th guy for Team Roman Reigns for obvious reasons. The primary reason is this guy needs a push, right? He already is getting his slight push. Also, he speared Solo Sikoa and got away with it, which shouldn't sit well. Also, he put the straps down and got into Jacob Fatu's face. So it was presented really well, meaning that Braun Breaker is not intimidated by these guys, which I thought was excellent. Basically, he's like, I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? I'm Braun Breaker. I'm the badass, right? A badass would not be intimidated by these people. So the way that Braun Breaker was being booked was excellent. However, the way that the match played out was also acceptable. And I'll talk about that more in a different video that I'm probably going to record right now. But the reality is that Jey Uso did a good job, and this pushed forward the more coherent storyline of the Bloodline Civil War. And at this point, if you're going to have a 4th man, you can get Sami Zayn, I guess. I don't know. But it should be someone who's part of the Bloodline. Not an honorary Us, but it should be someone that's part of the Bloodline, right? I don't know who they're going to find. Maybe Zilla Fatu can make an appearance. Maybe Hikuleo can debut. I don't know. Maybe they get like Nia Jax. I don't know. But maybe they get The Rock. Imagine if that shit would happen. That would be fucking insane. Then it would be like there's absolutely no chance that Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa have against The Rock. But you know what I mean? It needs to be contained, right? If it's not contained, then I think Braun Breaker makes a pretty good addition. That being said, I give this episode of Raw a solid 7 out of 10. The main event was stellar. In my opinion, it was very well done. Rey Mysterio winning was also a good thing. And of course, the highlight of the night, the return of Lillian Garcia, cuckolds. The hater was thoroughly impressed by this episode. I enjoyed it, and it makes me want to watch Raw again. Cucks. Oh, I should also mention, there was a segment with Gunther that I mentioned already with him and Damian Priest. But in that segment, Gunther cut the worst promo of all time. And with that being said, take care of yourselves, cuckolds.